Today we'll be recapping the manhwa. Extras don't want to be overly obsessed. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, as it really helps our channel. Thanks. This is Sophie. She works at the local inn in a small, pretty village with her good friend Jera. Her life is pretty average. The only thing not so average is the person who was reborn inside this character's body. After the real Sophie suffered a pretty serious disease about a month ago, a girl from our world, the real world, somehow woke up in the body of an extra from a novel she once read. Sophie's character wasn't mentioned even once in the book. I don't know about you guys, but I'd be pretty upset if I was reincarnated as a totally irrelevant extra. But for the girl now living as Sophie, it's perfect. And so is this dead-end town on the eastern border of the Empire. The weather is nice, the landscape is pretty, and there are never any villains to bother them. While the girls work through endless piles of laundry, the topic turns to the Emperor's impending marriage in the capital. Sophie, of course, already knows that he will marry the female protagonist, the princess of a small kingdom who will save the Rohatan Empire from a dark crisis ahead. Classic fairy tale stuff. She knows pretty much everything about this novel, except the backstory of her mysterious side character who appeared in the village one day a few years back, battered and covered in blood. She also has a burn mark in the shape of a butterfly on her right leg. Is anyone else starting to get the impression that Sophie might not be irrelevant as she thinks? But the real Sophie was meant to die at 21 during the disease in which the current Sophie took over her body, so she can't be that important if she's already dead by the start of the novel. Still doing laundry, the other working girls chat about the main villain, Duke Cedric, a total psycho who lost his mind after his little sister disappeared. In the book, he becomes obsessed with the female lead because she looks a bit like his sister. According to the story, she should already be dead, but as the other girls describe her appearance, Sophie begins to sweat. Do you see where this is going? Once the truth sinks in, Sophie sits down to pull together her memories of the plot. Duke Bastian Cedric, lead villain in this tale, was a talented, handsome, and generous young man who was even friends with the Emperor in his youth. And then one day, he just snapped and started murdering anyone who got on his nerves, imprisoning and capturing the protagonist whenever he got a chance. If that Duke Cedric really is her elder brother and the rumors about him coming to their town are true, then she's in trouble. Luckily, Jera has already told all the other maidservants to keep their mouths shut when the Duke arrives. Well, that's what she said at the time. The next day, a letter arrives from Jera apologizing for giving her location away. That didn't take long, but honestly, I probably would have done the same for 6,000 gold. Sophie tries to convince the guards that they've got the wrong girl, but slips up when they ask about her scar. They grab her at once and shove her in a carriage headed for the capital. From then on, the head guard refers to her as Amelia. She is actually really kind to her and does everything she can to make her mistress feel comfortable. After driving through a magic portal, they arrive at the Cedric mansion, which is also really beautiful. I thought this Duke guy was meant to be a psychopath. Why is his house so pretty? And why are his guards so nice? As soon as she steps foot on the estate, a group of young maids come rushing up to her. They clearly adored the old Amelia, but this new one has to admit she doesn't even know their names. Ouch. Once inside, Amelia spins a web, pretending she has lost all her memories from her time at the Cedric mansion. Soon, the head maid Monica arrives and puts the weepy girls to work. They get a hot meal prepared for her and even draw a bath with rose petals. Okay, I think these girls might be a bit too obsessed with her. After her bath, the maids brush her hair while telling her everything that has happened since her disappearance 5 years ago. The Duke, who used to be kind, hasn't smiled once, and his younger brother has also disappeared. When they announce that the Duke is on his way to see her, they seem cheerful, as if they're not afraid of him. But this doesn't sway Amelia. She assumes he acts like an angel on the surface to hide the evil mastermind underneath. She'll have to keep her suspicions to herself. Not only will the staff not believe her, but in the novel, those who suspected Bastian Cedric wound up dead. She's already survived one near-death experience, so for now, it's probably best to keep her mouth shut. The maids style her hair and put her in a pretty dress for her family reunion. Amelia is 100% certain that she's about to die at the hands of this maniac brother. But when the Duke arrives, her jaw practically drops to the floor. Damn, that is one handsome lunatic. He walks straight across the room to give her a hug and asks her a load of questions. If she's hurt, if she's lost weight. He seems genuinely upset. Either he's a really good actor or Miss Amelia has got her facts mixed up. Amelia awkwardly addresses him as Your Grace, which clearly throws him off. One of the guards steps in to explain that she has lost her memory, but as soon as the words leave his lips, the Duke has drawn his sword. Uh-oh. Here we go, guys. He holds his blade to the guard's neck and reminds him of the order given to ensure his sister's safe return. Apparently, serious amnesia does not count as safe, so the Duke demands the guard pay for his mistake with his life. He seems like he genuinely might have killed the guy if Amelia didn't step in and tell him not to be so bloodthirsty. Besides, it's not his fault that she lost her memories. The Duke takes it surprisingly well and apologizes for scaring her. Then the next second, he tells her to wait in the other room while he slits the guard's neck. What? Okay, she was right. This guy is a certified psycho. After saving the life of the guard and having a doctor check her over, Amelia is given the all clear. She's already had 12 checkups, but the Duke just doesn't believe them. The doctor explains that memory loss is a different kind of problem. He can see there's been some damage to Amelia's aura, which has eradicated her memories completely. There's only one person on the continent who could help to restore them, a sorcerer in the West who hasn't been seen for about 100 years. He doesn't use traditional magic, and he's very fickle, so there's no guarantee he'd even agree to work for the Duke. Amelia immediately recognizes the doctor's description as that of Callus Arcadian, a whack job born with the blood of a cursed dragon god. He is also one of the novel's villains, and famously slaughtered innocents for fun. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if anyone in this novel isn't a bloodthirsty maniac. According to the novel, Bastian joined hands with Callus to bring ruin to the entire capital. So Amelia immediately sits up and tries to reassure her brother that she doesn't need her memories back. Bastian takes her concern as a sign of her not wanting to cause trouble. So he gives her a little kiss on the forehead and tells her not to worry. Big brother will take care of everything. Actually, that's exactly what she's worried about, Duke. He leaves her to rest up, or more accurately, to look out of the window and panic about her fate. Meanwhile, across the continent, a white-haired wizard is feeding his blood-eating plant when a subordinate runs in with news. The aura they've been tracking for some time was discovered at the eastern border of the Rahatan Empire. But by the time they found it, it was fading almost completely. All they know is that a human girl named Sophie recently left the village and headed to the capital around the same time. Now they've lost her again. The white-haired wizard orders his lackey to keep tracking her closely. It seems they've been searching for this girl for almost 1,000 years. Damn, the real Amelia must have been a big deal. I don't know if they'll be pleased to meet the new one who has no powers, no memory, and no aura. The white-haired wizard then enters the chamber of a sleeping man with deep blue hair. I'm going to take a wild guess and say this is Callus Arcadian at the end of his 100 years of hibernation. The wizard promises he will soon have good news for Callus and kisses his hand. Seriously, is there not one normal person in this entire series? Little do those freaks know, the very family they are searching for have just reached out via a letter to request the help of the great sorcerer Callus Arcadian. Technically, they were supposed to tell the Emperor when sending a letter outside the borders, but sneaky little Bastian doesn't want him to find out, so he sent it illegally. Over in Amelia's quarters, the maids are just as affectionate this day as they were last night. They even take turns for who gets to wake her up in the mornings. She's starting to get really bored, especially since her brother is so busy with his duties all the time. So Amelia asks the head maid Monica for some work. Anything at all, just to keep her busy. She puts the little miss in charge of the annex ledgers and managing the budget designated especially for Amelia. And trust me, it's a big budget. With some real money within her grasp, Amelia decides to put away a small portion of the budget every month so that she can save up and eventually run away before things get really crazy. To help bring more cash in, she decides to set up a business selling full moonstones, something that the protagonist Trisha is due to discover further along in the plot. Currently, moonstones are basically unusable, so her plan is to buy a whole lot of them and sell them for quadruple the price when the heroine makes her discovery. But that's a pretty long-term plan, and if Callus and Bastian meet before then, there could be some serious trouble before any of it comes to fruition. Amelia is just hoping that Callus won't be bothered to help some random Duke sister and will stay out of sight for at least another year. Now, why do I get the feeling that's not going to happen? That evening, Amelia and Bastian sit down for sibling dinner, where she updates him on her activities and the running of the annex. Since she needs new clothes, her brother suggests she go into town for shopping on the weekend. That's great! Not only can she get new clothes, but she can find a supplier for her full moon business as well. Just then, a boy in a white robe with pale hair suddenly bursts into the room, screaming her name. Oh god, here we go again. The boy, who is very handsome by the way, also knew the old Amelia and makes a comment straight away about how much thinner and taller she looks. But unlike the rest, Duke Cedric doesn't like this one. He throws him halfway across the room just for touching Amelia, which is pretty rude, since the white-haired kid is none other than their brother, the second-born son who left home 10 years ago. Bastian and his brother are clearly on very bad terms. They've barely been in the same room for minutes before they're trying to kill one another. If the Duke has a fierce reputation, I can only imagine what people say about this guy. He's crazy talented, and when Bastian tries to stop him, he destroys the house and rebuilds it with a snap of his fingers. I guess madness must run in this family. This mysterious sibling is Leonhardt Cedric, otherwise known as Leon. He's been with the Wizards of the Magic Tower for the last few years and was strictly forbidden from communicating with the outside world. He actually hadn't finished his magic training. He just got so powerful that he decided to leave since there wasn't much more they could teach him, and honestly, I believe it. They tell Leon about the plan to contact Callus, who he is already very familiar with due to his reputation among sorcerers. So he offers to bring him right to their front door, a plan which would surely end with his death. Amelia begs him not to, which he takes as a sign of her concern. The next day, he's all over her, asking to hang out while his sister heads to the library to read about moonstones. She's making some progress with her research, at least until her pathetic older brother demands her attention again. I can't tell who's worse, psychopath Bastian or baby Leon. After putting up with a week of Leon's childish whining, Amelia announces her plan to go shopping in town. Immediately, the boys start fighting about who will accompany her, and are close to trading blows until she tells them she'll be going alone. Aside from how annoying they are, she's really going to scout out a supplier for her moonstone business. The only person she'll be taking is Jenica, the vice captain of the Knights, and Monica to help her order furniture for the annex. Reluctantly, Bastian agrees to let her go, but not before he gives her a literal poison dagger as a present. After a brief lesson on the most sensitive arteries in the human body, she's all set. The first stop is furniture so that she can buy new beds for the employees. The shop owner is delighted to see a noble inside his store and tries to rip her off by giving her a fake catalog with higher prices. When Amelia notices, she can't let it slide. Look at that face! She is the villain's sister after all. The owner realizes suddenly that she's part of Duke Cedric's family and drops to his knees instantly. She is just about the last person you would want to offend. I don't think Bastian would think twice about taking a hand or a life. Jenica even offers to do it for her, but then Monica steps forward and offers a solution, which is basically just to threaten the store owner with a smile. But she does manage to get them a refund and a discount for the next 20 years. To distract the others, she goes on a small shopping spree before hitting the main mission of today's trip, the mineral market. It only opens after sunset since it's kind of a shady spot. 2 hours before sundown, Amelia reveals her plans to Jenica and Monica and asks them to keep it a secret from her brothers. They seem hesitant, but in the end, they agree. Though they probably wish they hadn't when Amelia whips out a load of costumes and makeup. Monica doesn't look as rugged as they'd hoped, but Jenica fits right in as a mercenary. Their cover is to pretend they're part of a small guild, of which Amelia is the guild master. While his sister is in town up to no good, Leon is having a tantrum at home. I don't know how someone this childish can become a master of the arcane arts. As it turns out, he's only left the magic tower to come visit Amelia. And he is just recently appointed owner of the tower, so he probably shouldn't have left in the first place. He was kind of hoping she'd still be the sweet little kid from his memories, but now she's all grown up and doesn't need him around. That doesn't stop him from treating her like a toddler still. So when the sun goes back and she hasn't returned to the estate, guess who goes running into town to save her? Leon, of course. He finds her in an instant and overhears her entire plan. He also spots another hooded figure watching her from the alleys, which turns out to be the other brother, Bastian. Oh my god, guys, just leave her alone! She managed 5 years without you fine. I think she can handle one night by herself. And she's doing just fine so far. With Monica leading the way, doing her best tough guy impersonation, they bypass the guards just fine. It helps that Amelia has some knowledge from the novel and knows all the passwords used between guild members. But when they get inside, they find the whole market completely deserted. Wait, what? Is today some kind of national holiday? But then, why were the guards outside? There's only one figure ahead of them, standing in the middle of the street and wearing a hood. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't go near a guy like that with a 10-foot pole. Amelia, however, runs straight up to him because, of course she does. She asks him why there's no one around, and the guy just says it's a quiet day. Dude, it's not just quiet, it's dead. He smiles at her, and for a moment, Amelia gets a flash of some familiar bright blue eyes. Does anyone else see what's going on here? Because I think I do. The hooded stranger offers to show her around, since she's obviously new. He leads them through the center of the market, pointing them in the direction of the Opera Corporation, who will have her full moonstones. He talks pretty formally for a crook and spends the whole time smiling before vanishing into the shadows without giving them a name or a guild to trace him back to. Come on, Bastian. I think you could do better than that. By some small miracle, Amelia didn't recognize him, so they enter the suspiciously welcoming Opera Corporation and find no one inside. No one, except a weirdly polite guy in a wig. Nice to see you too, Leon. Really went all out with that disguise, huh? Introducing himself as the manager of the Opera Corporation, he offers her a cup of lavender tea with honey. I mean, come on. What kind of underground criminals do trades with lavender tea? They're not even trying. He even calls her cute when she sips it, so honestly, if Amelia can't tell what's going on at this point, that's on her. She asks him to transfer exclusive rights over moonstone sales directly to her. Most businessmen would probably be super suspicious of such a deal, but the manager agrees. Straight away, leaving Amelia totally shocked. Because the protagonist hasn't discovered their use yet, full moonstones aren't very popular right now. But that doesn't mean they're cheap. And it's still technically a rare mineral. So Amelia is right to be suspicious when the man in the wig immediately agrees to give her exclusive rights to the moonstones. The only thing he asks for in return is for her to give 3 cute poses. What is this, a fan sign event? She swallows her pride and acts like a baby, humiliating herself but delighting the mysterious stranger. After that, they drop a contract and finalize the deal. Is anyone else curious what Leon and Bastian did with the real Opera Corporation workers? Like, did they force them to agree to this, or are they tied up in a corner somewhere shaking their heads? Anyway, Amelia signs with a fake name to keep her identity safe, while Leon is chatting away about how proud her big brothers must be to have a competent sister like her. Subtle, Leon. Real subtle. He offers her another cup of tea, but she gathers her fake guild members and decides to leave. Luckily, the man in a wig already placed signposts to help her get out safe. Although, I don't know if you can call them signposts when they're so bright and neon. While she's safely exiting the market, Leon has removed his disguise and is still all mushy about his little sister acting cute. Suddenly, Bastian appears at the door, still in his hood. He crosses the room in 2 strides and grabs his brother by the collar, asking if he's lost his mind. Uh-oh, is he still upset about the egg yolk thing? Actually, no. Despite wearing the hood and having his eyes the exact same color as normal, Leon used his magic to disguise Bastian as well. The only things he changed were his hair color and his eyebrows, which now look like a Mario character's eyebrows. In an instant, Leon changes him back. His talent is impressive, but I once again have to ask, why didn't he change his eye color? It's literally the most distinctive thing about him. Leon shows him the contract, which has already been fixed and confirmed with the Opera Corporation's seal. I'm sure the real guild members won't be too happy about that, but then again, who would be brave enough to go up against the Cedric family? And it's kind of sweet that for the first time the brothers joined forces just to protect their little sister. They sent everyone in the market to another dimension, as you do, except the manager of the Opera Corporation, who is indeed tied up in the back. The boys leave him with the signed contract and don't even bother to untie him before they head back home, where Amelia is waiting. Since she got back late, it's not suspicious that she hasn't seen her brothers yet. But since she brought them presents in town, she decides to explore the house and see if they're awake. Bastian is working in his office as if nothing ever happened. Amelia thinks he's been working from dawn to midnight, so she feels sorry for him. Little does she know he spent half the day shoving thugs into a portal and blackmailing corporation managers. She hands him the present, a pair of beautiful cufflinks to match his eyes. They're actually really nice, and the Duke loves them too, so much that he's speechless for a minute. Eventually, he thanks her for the gift and promises to wear them all the time. And I really think he will. Next stop is Leonhardt. Although Amelia isn't sure at first if he's even still awake, she doesn't have to worry. He's right outside their brother's office, hanging upside down. Was he listening at the door or something? These boys really need to lay off their sister and leave her alone from time to time. Leon gives Amelia the fright of her life, and then has the nerve to tell her she looks cute when she's scared. She begs him to use his feet like normal people, at which point he hops down from the ceiling and says he was waiting for her. In other words, he was listening at the door, just like we thought. Despite being put off a bit by his clingy nature, Amelia still hands him the present she bought in the market. It's an emerald brooch, perfect for his fancy sense of style. Of course, Leon couldn't just accept it like a normal person. No, he goes bright red and nearly starts to cry. He likes the present so much that he even declares it as a new family heirloom to be preserved using magic so it can be handed down from generation to generation. Oh my god, Leon, get a grip. Aside from the usual drama, he's a lot more chipper than Amelia was expecting, considering she left him alone in the house all day. She asks what he got up to, but the best excuse he can come up with is cleaning. Famously, the best way to make a person cheerful and upbeat. Lucky for him, Amelia just assumes he got so bored that he started doing housework to pass the time. A week later, Amelia is woken with a start when her maids burst into her bedroom bright and early. The beds she ordered for the staff have arrived. Clearly, the girls like them so much they decided to thank her by waking her up and screaming at her. Nice. Once Monica shoos them away, she assures her mistress that the rest of the staff are genuinely grateful. Everyone is impressed by her generosity and kindness. Monica also has the first report from the Opera Corporation about the Moonstone production. On average, they generate about 1 ton a month, which is actually less than Amelia was hoping for. They're planning to look for a new mine, but it won't be easy. If she'd struck any kind of normal deal, this might be a problem for our young entrepreneur. But since her brothers agreed to a crazy contract, she's still going to be raking in the cash every month. Thinking about money reminds her of Jera, the friend who sold her out for 6,000 gold. With her new monetary mindset, she is a lot more sympathetic to her old friend, so she decides to write her a letter. By the end of the day, she's already received a letter back, but it's not from Jera. It's from the Imperial Palace. Uh-oh. The letter contains a list of candidates for Empress selection, one of whom is none other than Amelia Cedric. Well, I guess it was only a matter of time before the protagonist got involved. But does this mean she might have to marry the Emperor? In case you needed a reminder, the Emperor is a young man with striking blue hair who acts as the main romantic interest in the novel. He's famously obsessed with his work and has never been in a romantic relationship or even considered marriage despite being on the throne for 8 years already. At the point at which the novel starts, he's being forced to find a wife by his many advisors, who think it's high time the Empire had an empress. Of course, in the original story, Amelia Cedric wasn't even considered for the position, because she was dead. Duh. But this time, she's on the chopping block. Fortunately, her brothers feel the same as she does. As soon as her brother receives a letter, he storms into her room and rips up her invitation. Unfortunately, it seems the Imperial Palace predicted his reaction and sent them 24 different copies of the same letter. Wow, they must know Bastian very well. That leaves the Cedric family with no choice. The next day, Amelia takes a carriage to the Imperial Palace to meet Elan Alcade Roten, Emperor of the Roten Empire, and a childhood friend of her big brother. Though I have a feeling the Duke doesn't see him that way these days. In the book, he's described as a kind, self-sacrificing man and a good ruler. So basically an all-round all-star protagonist. But so far, things have gone very differently to the original plot. None of the original villains have turned out to be evil. So maybe the Emperor will be different as well? Bastian accompanies her to the palace, probably for protection more than politeness. They are escorted inside by a butler who takes them straight to the drawing room where the Emperor is waiting. He's just as shiny and handsome as you'd expect. Although, I don't know about you guys, but I would still pick Bastian any day, even with his murderous, bloodthirsty tendencies. Amelia makes a polite introduction while her brother broods in the corner. But Emperor Elan seems to be very familiar with Bastian's cold demeanor. If anything, he finds it entertaining, almost like he's teasing him on purpose. The Duke comes straight out and announces that Amelia cannot be a candidate for his marriage. And the Emperor takes it really well? He says he was expecting their response and only sent those letters because he wanted to meet Amelia in person, now that she has returned to the capital. The last time they met, she was just 13, but Elan says she's grown into a beautiful young woman. He basically admits that she would be his first choice for a marriage candidate, especially since the Cedric clan and the Imperial family already have such strong ties. But he isn't stupid. Bastian would probably have him killed before the wedding could take place. Actually, aside from reconnecting, he has also called them both to the palace to talk about Callus Arcadian, the sorcerer who they were trying to contact in secret. Looks like that plan failed. Elan isn't mad, he's just worried for them. The West is a dangerous place to venture to if you're not prepared, and since the Emperor knows their letters have been ignored, they'll either have to pay Callus a visit in person or beg for Eilon's help. He gives them permission to go and hunt him down, and even offers to send some Imperial mages for assistance, but only on the condition that Amelia becomes a candidate for Empress. Ah, now it's all making sense. What a sneaky guy. Bastion barely touches his sword before 3 Imperial assassins have him at knife point. Thankfully, he puts his sword away when Eilon says he was just kidding. Again. But he does have one condition. He wants Amelia to become Domina next spring on the national holiday. You see, spring is the anniversary of the Empire, and on the day of its founding, they have a religious ceremony which is led by a representative known as the Domina. It's usually performed by the Empress or a princess, but obviously they don't have one of those yet. Since Amelia is a noble woman close to the Rohatyn family, it's not an outrageous request. The only problem is that she hasn't made her debut in noble society yet. She was supposed to be introduced at 16, but that was the age she went missing. So this would be one heck of a debut. But the Duke is against it. The moment she has officially debuted among the nobles, she would be eligible for marriage. So it's no surprise Bastion looks so moody. But even he knows there's probably no way around this. She has to debut at some point. He asks Amelia for her opinion. Finally, and she agrees. The Emperor is delighted and gives them permission to send the letter on to Callus. He invites them for lunch, but the Cedric siblings have had enough of his antics for one day. While they head back home in their carriage, we get a flashback to 1 month ago, when the first letter arrived halfway across the continent at the Tower of Callus Arcadian. And then 37 more arrive. Seems like Bastion and the Emperor both have a thing for nagging people. The channel for communication between the Western Territory and the Rohatyn Empire is usually reserved for urgent information, like when a country is at war or a deadly plague is ravaging their people. But the first letter to arrive was directly from Duke Cedric without the normal seal, which means it wasn't sent with the permission of the Emperor. The wizard was intrigued until he opened the letter and realized it was just about the Duke's sister. Then he immediately tore it to pieces. The next day, another letter arrived, and another the day after, and another the day after that. The wizard ignored all of them until finally one arrived directly from the Emperor. But since this is number 39, there's no telling if they'll actually answer their request. Now the anniversary of the Empire's founding is only 5 days away, and Bastion is already worried about how much attention his sister is going to attract. In his classic psychopath style, the Duke decides to make a list of all the unmarried nobles who will participate in the ceremony so that he knows exactly who to keep his eye on. Meanwhile, Amelia is completely unbothered by her upcoming introduction to society. She's more worried about the fact that Jera hasn't sent a response to her letter, and it's been a week already. That's kind of sad. Maybe she really did take the money and ran? But there's lots of preparation to keep her mind off Jera. For one thing, she needs to decide on a partner to accompany her to the ball. For a young lady's debut social event, they are usually accompanied by an adult male. But the idea of choosing between Bastion and Leon? Well, let's just say that wars have started for less. Amelia is considering choosing one of her maids to accompany her instead, when her eyes suddenly land on Violet, who looks miserable. It turns out her fiancé has been cheating on her, and she only found out yesterday. To make it even worse, the other woman was a girl from the family of Earl Chloe, the nobles her fiancé works for. Taking a leaf out of her brother's book, Amelia summons Jenica the Knight and asks Monica to bring them 20 sticks. Wait, are they going to go over and beat the guy up? Hell yeah! This is the action I signed on for! Promising to teach Charles, the fiancé, a lesson, Amelia leaves Violet at the estate and hops in a carriage bound for the royal park. It's a popular place for lovers to hang out, so she's hoping to catch the cheater in action. Amelia remembers the description of Lady Chloe from the book. The plan is to identify her, beat the living daylight out of Charles, and talk some sense into the girl. After all, she's only 17, and Violet's fiancé is 27! Gross, gross, gross! I'm sure she can do better than that. It doesn't take long for Amelia to find Lady Chloe. She strikes up a conversation with her, pretending to be Mel, a random noble's daughter. She pretends she's waiting for a date, hoping to encourage Lady Chloe to confess. And somehow, it works! She reveals that she's fallen in love with one of her family's knights. Just then he appears, bright red and clearly nervous to see his secret love affair chatting with another noble lady. He spins this tale about how Lady Chloe was his first love and he fell for her straight away because she's so beautiful. Ugh, I can't stand this guy. Clearly, the girl has no idea he's secretly engaged. But when Amelia mentions Violet's name, he freezes on the spot. Gotcha! He couldn't be more obvious if he tried. She covers it up by pointing to some flowers nearby, but now he's given the game away. Poor Lady Chloe still has no idea what's going on or why her lover looks like he's about to jump out of his skin every time she says the word Violet. She even pulls out a purple handkerchief to dab his sweat with. Oh my god, this man is practically quaking. Amelia waves a handkerchief in front of him and asks if there's anything he wants to confess. When he refuses, it becomes obvious that they're not going to get an apology out of him. So she switches tactics and punches him in the face. While Charles is still seeing stars, she reads out a letter that he wrote to Violet, full of sweet nothings and lovers' lies. Poor Lady Chloe looks heartbroken, so Amelia blows her cover and reveals her true identity. She apologizes for lying and says she hopes they meet again, maybe once she's over that 27-year-old two-timing creep. Then she hands her the letter and engagement ring that Charles gave to Violet. I don't know what she was expecting her to do, maybe start crying and run away, but Lady Chloe turns into a professional martial artist and starts beating the crap out of her ex. And good for her! Seriously, he deserves it. Once she's made sure that that man will never have children, Lady Chloe thanks Amelia and asks her to send her apologies to Violet. She even invites her to her house. Well, that went better than expected. She got revenge and made a friend in the process. Back at the Cedric mansion, Bastian is analyzing the list of families participating in the anniversary celebration. There are a lot more than usual, and to make matters worse, there are twice as many unmarried nobles attending. Although, that might be because Bastian is counting both genders. He truly believes his sister is so perfect that even the ladies will start to propose. Which might be true, but it just makes more enemies for the Duke. While he's scanning the list and memorizing names, Bastian gets a call from the Emperor via crystal ball. Because apparently that's a thing in this country. Aelon only rang to tease him about being Amelia's partner at the ball. Bastian had completely forgot about Leon's return and only now realizes his position might be in danger. Oh dear, here we go again. I smell another sibling fight brewing. Over in the annex, Amelia and her maids are in much better spirits after beating that lowlife Charles within an inch of his life. But there's some bad news. There are almost no magicians or alchemists available in the capital to help Amelia refine the purpose of full moonstones. It seems all the talented magicians are either working for the tower or stationed at the border because of an increase in monster activity. So that means when Amelia gets her first shipment of moonstones, she won't be able to do anything with them because she doesn't have experts to help her. As Monica and her mistress are trying to come up with a solution, there's a knock at the door. A maid arrives with a suspiciously large package from the Imperial Palace. She unravels it to reveal a humongous scroll and announces that this is a list of things the Domina must prepare before the anniversary. Oh, great! As if she didn't already have 1,000 things to keep up with. Most of it is just about taking care of her body and health properly in the days leading up to the ceremony, but she must also write a speech for the occasion and visit a temple to get the blessing of the goddess. Wait, when did this series get so religious? We haven't seen any sign of god or goddesses, and now suddenly Amelia has to do a pilgrimage? But the worst condition of all is that she must carry out all of these with her companion, who will accompany her to the ceremony and the ball, which means it's finally time to choose. Leon or Bastian? A letter came to inform Bastian of the companion condition, and when Leon saw the Imperial messenger, he followed his brother to the annex at once. So now they're standing in front of her, waiting for her to make a decision there and then. Amelia is a little overwhelmed, so Monica steps in to take some of the heat off her mistress. She reminds them that usually a lady is accompanied on her debut by a father or guardian. Even though as Domina she has more flexibility, it only makes the most sense to choose the head of the household and therefore pick Bastian. As expected, Leon does not take that well. With a creepy smile, he turns to his big brother with flames in his hands and tells him to prepare for death. Seriously, everyone in this house has zero chill. Before anyone can do any real damage, Amelia tells them to knock it off and even threatens to leave the Cedric house if they continue bickering like children. From now on, if they enter the annex, they must come in peace. There will be no fighting allowed whatsoever. Finally, poor girl has to act like a parent, but it's about time someone laid down the law. Although that doesn't stop them from being pests. The next morning, Leon flies in through the window while she's still in bed, campaigning for the position of companion. He does make some valid points. That magic of his would be very useful in getting to the temple at the peak of the mountain. But she still has 10 days to decide, so she tells him to buzz off and heads over to the main building for breakfast with Bastian. He's looking handsome as usual and has taken the lead on her Domina duties to prepare a vegan breakfast, as per the requirements. They're having a nice, peaceful meal before Leon shows up, thumping down the corridor with a purple face. Judging by Bastian's smirk, I think it's safe to assume this is the work of the Duke. For once, Leonhardt's fancy jewelry and robes are nowhere to be seen. His hair is disheveled and his shirt is messy. Oh, and he's holding a snake in one hand. It turns out Bastian left a snake in his bedroom, knowing that Leon has a genuine fear of snakes. And to make matters worse, it was a snake made of dark magic that could have killed him in one bite. He seems to have taken the no fighting rule very seriously. This wasn't technically a fight, and since he paid a witch to do it, it doesn't count as a direct hit. It's still absolutely psychotic, though. This sneaky fighting is no better than the swords and fire from before. Amelia is just as stressed and still no closer to an answer. The day wears on, and soon she approaches the 1 week mark. In the final 7 days before the ceremony, she must follow a strict Domina schedule, which means she needs to choose her companion within this week. Now her choice is less about who she actually wants by her side and more about who is less likely to kill the other one if they don't get picked. Ugh, these boys are so exhausting. Seeing her frustration, Monica hands her a book with a few rules about the Domina to see if they can find a loophole. They learn more about the symbol, which used to be taken up by a woman with incredibly divine power, who could touch the famous lifestone and make it glow as bright as the sun. Over time, the Domina became just a lady of high status, and the lifestone was not used to store the power of the goddess, but to bring any who touch it riches and a long life. Amelia's going to do whatever she can to get her hands on that for sure. After skimming the rules a few more times, she finds the perfect loophole and calls her brothers to her office. There's no official rule saying that the Domina only has to have one companion, so she's decided to take them both. The boys aren't particularly happy, but the Imperial Palace has already approved her choice. Bastian points out that the companion is meant to be her dance partner. How can she dance with 2 people at once? But Amelia says that's not a problem. They can take turns dancing together. I'm kind of shocked no one thought of this before, but it does seem like the perfect solution. She asks if either of them have any complaints, and reluctantly, they accept her decision. Now that the battle for companion has finally ceased, the real work of the Domina must begin. Amelia is awoken at sunrise the next morning and bathed in pure water before being prepped and dressed by her maids. She does look beautiful by the time they finished, but if I were Amelia, I'd be throwing a hissy fit. Who needs to wake up at dawn just to have their hair brushed? She meets her brothers outside, all 3 of them dressed in white. Leon teleports them to the Great Temple of Eldepa, the largest shrine in all of the Empire. Although it's really more like a cathedral and a mammoth one at that. The high priest, who introduces himself to them as Enoch, welcomes them at the entrance. They're about to follow him inside when Amelia notices that Bastian is nowhere to be seen. Great. Did Leon deliberately leave him behind? Somehow, Amelia holds back her fury and demands he bring his brother immediately, or else she won't let him enter the annex for 3 days. That seems to work. And a minute later, Bastian arrives looking horrified. I have a feeling he wasn't just standing around at the mansion all this time. Enoch leads them to the temple, at which point only the Domina is allowed. Leon and Bastian have to wait outside. I just hope they're both still alive when she gets back. The high priest leads her to a sacred prayer room, explaining that what happens inside must remain a secret to absolutely everyone. They've cleared out the whole temple so that she won't be disturbed and can meet the goddess in peace. Amelia is a little surprised since it's just a prayer session. She kneels beneath the statue of the goddess and realizes she doesn't really know how to pray. Since there's no one around, she just speaks instead. She talks about how she wound up in this novel, how there were so many times she thought she was going to die, but her life has turned out pretty good. She prays for a long life and to pass away peacefully in her sleep someday. And then suddenly, a voice inside her head actually answers her. Amelia opens her eyes and looks around, but there's no one there. She thinks she must be hearing things, but then the whole world starts shaking and her head is filled with a voice. Some of the words are cut out, so she can't hear what they're saying. It sounds like they want her to stand, but she's frozen to the spot, totally paralyzed. And then suddenly, the feeling fades and the voice disappears. She can't remember anything. The only proof it really happened is a small pounding headache. Whoa, that's creepy. Then the high priest interrupts and tells her it's been 4 hours already. What the heck? Amelia is a little spooked but remains calm. I don't know about you guys, but I'd be running from that room screaming if I was her. The next day, she's back at home in the exhausting routine of the Domina, which only gets worse the closer they get to the ceremony. She has to memorize the national rites and remember all the names and faces of the nobles who will be present. It's impossible. And on top of all of that, she's still trying to build her moonstone business. It's been 2 weeks since they got their first shipment of the stones, but she still hasn't found the right person to help them refine it. She considers reaching out to the opera manager for help, who you probably remember was just Leon in a wig. But his disguise was creepy enough to keep her away, so she decides to widen the search and keep looking for their specialist. The night before the ceremony, the city will be overtaken by small festivals where people all around the empire will light a bonfire and dance and sing all night. There's also a tradition that the nobles get to dress as commoners, so Amelia was hoping she could join in. But of course, she can only participate as the Domina. This whole representative of the goddess thing kinda sucks, huh? While everyone else gets drunk and has a good time, Amelia has to give a short speech, greet some locals, and distribute food and drink that has been sacrificed to the goddess. Monica reminds her to be on her guard during all of this, since the night before the ceremony can sometimes lead to rowdy behavior. In the past, people have even been killed. But who would want to assassinate little old Amelia? And considering her lunatic brothers, who would even try? The final touch to her all-white outfit is a special necklace given by the Imperial family, made from lifestone. They're about to leave when Amelia calls Jen and presents her and Monica with a few presents of her own. Aw, she's such a good mistress. For Monica, she bought a dress, custom made to suit her. For Jen, a new sword belt made of high-quality leather. They're both very grateful and also a little emotional. After the gift-giving, they head out to town with Bastion and Leon in tow, as if she didn't have enough protection already. There are already huge crowds of people in the square, so they have to take the back alley routes via carriage. Apparently, the capital's checkpoints are under heavy strain, and it's all because of Amelia. People have traveled from faraway cities just to see her. I don't know if it's because she's the Domina or if it's because she was missing for so many years, but apparently, our little Amelia is quite the celebrity, so no pressure or anything. Once they finally arrive, a baron in charge of the festivities named Eric comes to greet Amelia. He invites her up to the stage, in front of 1,000 citizens who have gathered to hear her speech. The second she gets up there, Amelia blanks. And I don't blame her. I think I would have run away screaming by this point already. But suddenly, from near the front of the crowd, she hears the encouragement of her maids, telling her how pretty she looks. And just like that, her fears melt away. She gives her speech, and the crowd goes wild. As she's descending the stage, she hears that voice again, the one from the temple inside her head. But once again, she chooses to ignore it. Don't worry, I'm sure it won't come back to haunt her in future or anything like that. Her next duty is distributing food, which is actually pretty rewarding because she gets to interact with the commoners one-on-one. Her brothers are getting a lot of attention too, especially from the girls in line. But one girl who snags Amelia's attention is Lady Chloe. Amelia is surprised to see her, especially since she's interrupting a line of people poor enough to qualify for charity food. Lady Chloe, whose real name is Aria, got permission to come and participate in the festival just so that she could see Amelia. Apparently her mother, the famous businesswoman, is also excited to meet Amelia at the ball tomorrow, as she wants to thank her for helping her daughter. Aria rushes off, leaving Amelia to finish the rest of her duties. It all goes well, until an old lady comes to the front and creepily tells her to listen to the fate calling her. Well, that's not freaky at all. The woman is taken away and nothing else happens, but the thought stays in her head. Could that old lady possibly have known about the voices she's been hearing? The next day, she is woken up uncomfortably early again. Today, at last, the ceremony has arrived. She gets dressed up in an extra fancy white gown, which is just as impressive to her maids as it is to her brothers. The boys look pretty snazzy themselves. They're even wearing the gifts she bought them. They enter the Imperial Palace with a smile, not fighting for once on this very special occasion. The Emperor Elyon is notified of their arrival in his office, where he's keeping a close eye on the Lifestone. He mentions to his butler that when he first received news of Amelia's return to the capital, he knew at once she had to become the next Domina. Which is kinda sus, especially since the decision to give the position to an ordinary noble wasn't an obvious one. But does that mean he wants her as his emperor someday? I really can't figure this guy out. Whatever his real motives, he seems to believe for some supernatural reason that Amelia is important. He even heard from Baron Eric that she heard voices the night before the festival. Well, whatever he makes of all this is a mystery for now. Downstairs, Amelia is battling 1,000 pairs of eyes in the ballroom where every single conversation is about her. Luckily, they're soon approached by a pair of friendly faces, Aria Chloe and her mother, Countess Karen Chloe. The Countess wholeheartedly thanks Amelia for her help with Aria's boy trouble and offers their whole family's assistance should she ever need anything in return. Looks like beating up cheating scoundrels really pays off in this world. The Emperor arrives just as Amelia is trying to sneak off to the buffet, so the whole Cedric family comes over to pay their respects. Once the formalities are finished, she spots Monica with her hot young fiancé. Since she's from a different noble family, she's attending the ball in her own right. Monica introduces Derek Cillian, her fiancé, the youngest person to ever be accepted into the Royal Knights. He's quite the catch. Honestly, I'm a little jealous of Monica. While they're talking, Amelia overhears someone suggesting that she only got the role of Domina because of her ties to the royal family. He really isn't holding back. He pretty much says it to her face. Like a boss, Amelia walks over to humiliate the guy, who turns out to be the Earl Dias. She perfectly treads the line between polite and brutal, while all the other nobles watch. See? She doesn't need her brother's protection. Amelia is perfectly fine on her own. And what a way to make her debut into society. She riles the Earl up enough that he starts swearing and making a fool of himself. Soon, a much more polite man named Earl Hamilton comes over to shut it down and apologizes to Amelia on his behalf. Wait, Hamilton? Haven't we heard that name before? It turns out he's the father of Gensia, her personal knight. He's even got the same bright red hair. They're a whole family of knights. Apparently, her 5 older brothers are all fierce fighters with great reputations. Once Hamilton has effectively banished the gross Earl Dias, the atmosphere returns to normal. Amelia thanks the Earl for his assistance, hoping she didn't cause too much of a scene. No. I think you put that douche in his place. If nothing else, it was great entertainment for the night. A group of young ladies who were chattering nearby watch the whole thing go down. One of them, the daughter of Earl Wilson, invites her over to hang with them, although obviously she says it in a much more fancy, noble way than that. The girls introduce themselves and tell her how excited they were to meet her in person, especially after she lectured Earl Dias. He doesn't seem to have the best reputation among the nobles, and especially the young girls, so everyone was happy to see him taken down a peg or two. Then Lady Chloe appears, and the girls ask how the two of them met. Aria is only too happy to tell the story of how Amelia saved her from the two-timing knight, which only boosts her reputation further. For the first time in high society, Amelia is doing really well. Unfortunately, she has to ditch her new fan club when the Emperor calls for a chat in private. He presents her with the necklace she was wearing last night and admits that it is used to help the Domina connect with the goddess. Is that why she was hearing voices? Has Elyon been behind this all along? He warns her that in the past, some Dominas have fainted after putting it on, because the divine power contained within it is so strong. He asks her to wear it to the ceremony, and Amelia agrees. Even though she was okay yesterday, she is extra nervous for the upcoming event, which is only 2 hours away. Just about keeping it together, she then returns to the ballroom for her first dance with Bastian. They look perfectly angelic on the floor, but while the others are dancing, Bastian is up to his usual big brother antics, giving her a signal to notify her personal bodyguard if anything goes wrong. Honestly, this man thinks she's going to be murdered at every opportunity. The shock of hearing that he actually hired her a secret bodyguard makes Amelia suddenly trip and presents her brother the perfect opportunity to show off to any of the ladies watching. How is this man not married yet? She dances with a few different guys throughout the night, but it's kind of uncomfortable with both of her brothers giving them evil eyes. Poor Amelia just wants a chance at the buffet table, but before she knows it, she's being summoned for the ceremony. The priests help her get ready by washing her hands in holy water. The high priest himself even shows up, although he seems very surprised to hear that the Emperor gave her the necklace she's wearing, and even told her about its history. The ceremony itself is pretty easy, unlike all the other duties the Domina has had to complete so far. All she really needs to do is read the scroll left for her and touch the life stone. Then she will call the goddess 3 times and remove her hand. And that's it! Sounds easy, right? So then why do I feel like something big is going to happen? While the priests are preparing the ceremony, the voice returns to Amelia once again, calling her a little girl, telling her it's waiting for her. Anyone else surprised she hasn't sprinted for the hills at this point? The voice seems to be coming from the necklace, and just when Amelia is starting to think she's losing her mind, it starts glowing and floating. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stops when a priest knocks at the door and tells her everything is ready. On shaky legs, Amelia walks to the podium and begins her speech. Everything goes as it's supposed to, but then the life stone starts glowing too. The crowd is shocked, but she is determined to finish the ritual. As she says the last words, the life stone glows so bright that Amelia falls to the ground unconscious. And at just that moment, halfway across the world, Callous Arcadian wakes from his 100-year slumber. See? I told you something was going to go down. A sudden urge to open his eyes awoke Mr. Callous, followed by a loud bang on his door, along with shouting his name. The door suddenly opens and reveals a man who seems happy of his awakening after years of peaceful slumber. But who is he? It was a man named Ro, his loyal assistant and the custodian of the castle. Apparently, Ro sensed a surge of power that notified him of Callus's awakening. Meanwhile, Callous is wondering where the power came from that woke him up so suddenly. They found that it was from the Rohatan Empire, but the specific location is unknown. Bewildered by the event, he is thinking that the power must come from the person he has been waiting 1,000 years for. Although he's not fond of the capital environment, he is more than willing to go this way just to find that person. So he gets out of his bed and makes his way to the basement of the castle along with his assistant. On the other hand, the Domina, Amelia, hears a soft voice trying to wake her up. Wondering to whom the sweet voice comes from, she opens her eyes and sees a pretty lady who, shockingly, is floating in the air. The floating lady is the goddess who created the world. It sounds so crazy that Amelia cannot believe it. If she is with a goddess, then she must be dead and in heaven. But thankfully, she's not. The goddess just summoned her soul and her body is still alive, sleeping. The goddess summoned her because she was amazed by her. Their talk went on from her unusual wish of living to 100 years to their fateful encounters to how she was summoned, and even to how the goddess loves everything on Earth, and all the life in it. Amelia being one of her most beloved, the goddess prepared a gift for her. Back to the real world, the body of Amelia is still in deep slumber, and the Emperor, Elon, is now extremely worried, even calling in the most skilled doctor of the town to check on her. Then suddenly, his brother Duke steps in and points his sword at His Majesty, outraged by his sister's situation. The guard is alarmed by the sudden event, so they try to protect the Emperor, but it looks like it's not needed. He stays calm. He knows that the Duke will not do anything stupid. He even reminisces part of their childhood. Concerning the Duke's short temper, that is. His Majesty apologizes because of Amelia's current state, which the Duke seems to accept. He will leave them be for the moment, but he will not definitely stay still if his sister ceases to wake up. Elon summoned another personnel to check on Amelia, and assured him that she is well, but her soul is not with her as it is with the goddess. She will surely wake up, but the problem is the uncertainty of when that day will come, as the time differs in dimensions. She may wake up in 10 minutes or 10 years. Priest Layla interrupts their talk as she wants to give her opinion. Apparently, another person, a sorcerer of the West, was summoned by the goddess 1,000 years ago and is still alive, though it was not recorded on the official scriptures. And it is the same man they have been trying to reach out to help them retrieve Amelia's memories. Alarmed by this information, Duke Cedric decides to go and find him. Meanwhile, the newly awake sorcerer, Mr. Callous, arrives at the prophecy room with his assistant. He is thinking of ways to find the person he has been looking for, like wiping out the capital, but realizes that would be too much trouble, especially because it'll break the peace treaty. While still thinking of ways to find the girl in the vast capital, a loud sound interrupted his thought. A bird. Months ago, they received mail from Duke Cedric almost begging for help to get his sister's memories back. This intrigues Callous, so his assistant starts relaying information about the Duke and his sister, when a guard of the palace suddenly enters the room to deliver news. With a nervous voice, the guard announces that the person he has been looking for has been found, and it is Amelia Zane Cedric, the youngest of the Cedric family, the person they were just talking about. Ro is surprised by what he has heard, and he seems happy with this information, thinking that he could leave the castle to accompany the sorcerer. He turns to him, but Callus is already nowhere to be found. There he is, beside the bed of the sleeping Amelia, looking at her tenderly. Going back to the heavenly dimension, Amelia is wondering why the goddess would give her a gift. She wonders if she could decline, but of course, the goddess is reading her mind and tells her that she has no choice but to accept it. The goddess assures her that the gift will not harm her and that she will understand it soon. But in return, the goddess asks for a favor, which does not sit well with her. But the goddess assured her that it is not something difficult. She just has to meet someone and take care of that person. Well, it sounds like she has to take care of an abandoned animal. Still, she agrees to help the goddess with the intention of not letting her down in any way. It is now time to bid farewell with the goddess, as it is getting late and her brothers are for sure going insane because of worry. Panicking how long she has been with the goddess, she suddenly pulled her for a hug, telling her that she will always be there for her. Slowly, she drifts to sleep. Her eyes flutter open. Amelia is finally awake, but she is immobilized. Her body is aching to the core. The door creaks open and reveals Monica, a servant who is shedding tears out of relief. According to Monica, she has been in a coma for a week. Amelia could not tell her that she is in dire pain because for sure she will worry once again. She feels horrible for causing distress to all. The recent events twirl in her mind, specifically being summoned by the goddess when loud voices suddenly call for her. Her brothers arrived with a whole bunch of doctors, intent on checking on her one by one. After the long checkup with the doctors, her brothers are now convinced that she is fine. Amelia remembers the goddess's favor, so she asks her brother if there was anyone who visited her while she was in a coma, perhaps anyone that seemed like a stray animal. Well, according to her brothers, no one visited that looked like an abandoned animal, but if they had an uninvited guest, who was it? Suddenly, they hear footsteps, then a voice expressing his happiness that she is now awake. Behold, it is Callus, the abandoned animal she must have been waiting for. The dark hair and red eyes, it is definitely Callus, the character she had read about. Amelia is in crisis for uttering the name of the sorcerer, and now she is strongly denying the fact that she knows him. Well, knowing him from a book that she read as Sophie should not be of their knowledge. She continues lying by telling the Duke that she heard his name somewhere and has read about him, which Bastian seems to believe in. But something is not right. Her brother did not welcome the sorcerer warmly, like what was stated in the book. The two are arguing about something that she does not understand. Leonhard tells her not to mind them, but then the sorcerer suddenly takes a step closer and claims that she is his when a flying object almost hits him. Looks like the Duke is eager to kill him despite the peace treaty. Meanwhile, Amelia, who does not look well, is being devoured by stress. Thankfully, she was able to stop a possible bloodshed earlier by pretending to be ill. Monica, who is in the room with her, tells her that there is no feud upon Callus's arrival, as he was holding the letter from Leonhard asking for his help. It was the sorcerer that told his brothers when she would wake up. It could have been a huge mess if he was wrong, but his appearance feels wrong. How come he is the one that the goddess is pertaining to? What if he harms her? Monica leaves her alone and she starts thinking of how she will escape all the mess. How could she avoid a possible mess? She is getting deep into planning her escape when suddenly someone speaks. It is Callus, who can conveniently hear her thoughts. No matter where she goes, he is confident that he can find her. This confuses Amelia, but she will understand it eventually. After all, she is the one he has been waiting for 1,000 years. Flustered by the sudden nearing of their faces, Amelia drives him away by telling him that she doesn't want to know anything. Callus finds her reactions amusing, so he starts teasing her. She is trying so hard to get him out of her room, but he is extremely stubborn. Instead of leaving, he is insisting that she knows him, as she called his name earlier. She keeps on denying him, saying that she read about him in a book, but upon revelation, he never let anyone mention him in a book. In return to her denials, he tells her that he does not need to save someone irrelevant. Because of this, killing her will not be a problem. But of course, he's just teasing her. He is still insisting that she is his. They are playing push and pull as she denies him again, and now he is threatening to kill the Emperor first, then the whole continent. After all, he does not care for the peace treaty, and he is bored from sleeping. This scared Amelia. So to stop him from doing anything, she said that maybe she's that person. After that, he leaves the room with satisfaction. Later, under the warm sun, Amelia is walking around in peace when Callus suddenly pops out, startling her. He sure is bugging her, following her around everywhere. This man is extremely stubborn, so she cannot do anything about it. Her frustration only gives him amusement because of her facial expressions. Looks like he's having fun teasing her, but he cannot escape her as it would only mean bloodshed on her end. She continues to walk, and he is still following her when she accidentally trips over a rock. Callus is quick enough to catch her. Weird, but it is somehow romantic. Positioned sweetly, the sorcerer asks Amelle if she likes roses. She likes roses colored in deep red as it symbolizes love. Roses colored as red as his eyes. She is staring at him too much that he calls her out for how embarrassing it was. Well, it only boosted Callus's ego and confidence. The Domina is in the library when her brothers ask for her presence in the main building. Perhaps Bastian already came up with a decision concerning the sorcerer. It has only been a week since Callus started staying in the Duke's mansion. Her brother is quick to decide, considering the time frame. She arrives at the main building, and there are her brothers and Callus. The Duke starts off unseriously, as he almost calls him a bastard. But really, he's not afraid of him. Bastian had the sorcerer investigated, and it is revealed that his identity is real. Yet, they question his ways of retrieving their sister's memories. If it is not black magic, what is it then? They are not aware that he is just not any simple being, but rather a mixture of a dragon and a god, making his existence unique. The Cedric siblings are so lucky to interact and have him do a favor for them, because that man is extremely dangerous, to a point he could annihilate a whole continent if he pleases. Suddenly, her brothers turn their heads to her as they inform her that she will be the one deciding whether to let the uniquely stubborn man help her or not. It is a head-tearing moment for Amelle. If she cannot fathom his presence for a few minutes, what more if he is staying with them for a year? Still, she also wants to retrieve the real Amelle's memories. And so, she accepts his help. And Callus's response and his way of helping? It is him coming to her room every single night, which leaves their mouths hanging. The atmosphere is too cold because of Callus's plan. Obviously, no one is happy with it. What could make the Cedric brothers happy is killing the sorcerer on the spot. The two are filled with grim and rage that alarms their sister, but at the same time, Amelle is confused of what would Callus do in her room. The sorcerer, on the other hand, is still calm as he hasn't said his explanation yet. But the two are not holding back their anger and are determined to end him, giving Amelle a hard time. The two eventually follow their sister as they are soft towards her. Apparently, the sorcerer will restore her memories in her sleep through dreams. This calms them, but they are still wary of him. Still, their sister is assuring them it will be fine. Leonhard has casted spells throughout the building for her safety too. But her mind is in turmoil as she knows that the spell has no effect on him and that he will come to her room every night. Leonhard seems to be in discomfort with this idea, but he cannot do anything anymore as it's been decided by their beloved sister. Amelle's face is gloomy despite the sunny day. Her head is wandering elsewhere and she's even ranting on a wilting plant. How eventful. Out of boredom, she decides to check her moonstones. While doing so, there is a hinge of disappointment because there is no progress at all. She is looking at it when Callus pops out on her side, surprising her. What a bad habit he has, popping out in silence. He picks some stones and starts asking her what it was for. He is already scrutinizing her collection, calling it garbage. Well, it's his way of teasing her and making her talk. She shares that she has been experimenting on them to create a life stone, but unfortunately, even the royal family magicians are having a hard time researching it. While talking about her theory, a light shines in his hand, and behold, a life stone! How come he can instantly solve months of problems and agony of searching and doing trial and errors? Suddenly, she grabs his hands along with the stone and faces him nicely, inviting him for a talk. Seated across from each other in a study, Amelle proposes a contract, convincing Callus that they would need each other's help while staying together for a year. But the man is incredibly stubborn that he refuses her instantly. After all, he is there to help her bring her memories back, not help her to be rich. She continuously persuades him despite the hard rejections. On the other hand, he is plainly hearing her out regardless of her offers. Well, there is nothing more that he needs. He has the power, the face, and the money that even surpasses the treasury of their continent. She is eager to make him sign, that she is slowly opening herself to the idea of drawing or even carving that she's been avoiding for a while. It is making her curious why he's so adamant on making her carve, since he only says it's necessary for his world. With this, Amelle comes up with another deal. She will carve for him, but he has to make life stones for a year first, after which she will carve for him. If her sales will rise to 10 million gold in this time span, then she will grant him his request. But there's a hidden trick in her plan. It is quite impossible to have that net income. If it happens, she will escape him by traveling somewhere far. While further endorsing her deal, Callus interrupts her by questioning if she's deceiving him using the carving. Although he knows the deception that is about to take place, Callus still accepts Amelle's deal, no risk or any reward. They are about to sign their contract when he suddenly wants to add a few more conditions. The conditions being letting out the spell and restrictions surrounding the outbuilding. He is already having a tough time playing hide and seek with her brothers, just to get closer to her. Well, she can't touch the spell that Leonhard casted, but Callus is persistent. He wants her to talk to them since she got them wrapped around her fingers. She will try her best, but first, her brothers still do not know her business, which makes it harder to accomplish their deal. Their last condition is to call each other by name, and upon Callus's exit for the first time ever, he calls her name Amelle. The sorcerer Callus is sitting in the middle of the room while holding the contract they signed. How interesting it is that there is one brave person to make a deal with him, let alone it was for a business. She has definitely caught his interest. How can a small being be filled with numerous interesting plans? How come a frail and fragile girl will be able to save him? What is the goddess planning? Suddenly, a loud sound pulls him from his deep thoughts. It's Ro, his assistant. He is obviously not happy about his assistant's arrival. He is bombarded by apologies for following him late and all the unnecessary noise coming out of his mouth. However, the loud assistant stops talking when his master flat out tells him that there is no need for his help, simply because he is annoying and troublesome, which makes him dramatic. Despite the dismissal, Ro still strives to be of use. He starts asking Callus of his plan. He'll first work with Amelle, but as soon as his assistant sees the contract, Ro is enraged at how she's going to use his master for money. How unacceptable! Continuing with his plan, he will work with her to keenly keep an eye on her, but his assistant worries that he will drain his power. Despite this possibility, he is eager to continue it. Ro suggests ideas to get him on her good side. Perhaps he should gain her favor? But she is no ordinary woman that likes shiny things. She is interestingly simple. Well, should he woo her with sweet gestures and charming words? Perhaps those aren't in Callus's vocabulary. Meanwhile, Amelle seems to be having a good day. She is enjoying her peace as she talks with her servant for the day, Mina. While looking around, she notices the wilting plant from the other day, and it is much more lively and healthy now. She wishes for the plant to grow healthy so it can bring sunshine to her life. Amelle greets Bastian, but immediately pauses as soon as she sees Callus. The boys are having breakfast together when she arrives, so she joins them. While eating, her brother brings up Callus's job, which is to help her bring back her memories. Callus plans to begin the process very soon. In the meantime, he intends to practice during the daytime. Tension between them starts to build up as Callus starts acting superior, which kind of pisses Bastian off. It seems like he is not in a good mood because the breakfast with his sister is ruined. Uh-oh, I hope they don't end up fighting. He orders Callus not to come anywhere near the outbuilding. However, he reasons that it's not only up to him. He then addresses Amelle by her name, irking Bastian even more. He then explains that his sister is the one who told him to call her that, since she doesn't like the other nicknames. In her defense, she finds it unnatural for him to call her Lady Cedric. The environment starts to get awkward, especially for her. She needs to change the subject quickly. A few moments later, Bastian realizes that she hasn't needed his help lately, which makes him quite sad. She assures him that he is still her go-to person when she needs something. Now that it's time for him to go, he excuses himself. He shoots Callus a glare before he proceeds to leave, since he's now alone with his sister. After he leaves, Amelle calls him out for picking a fight with her brother. Phew! At least there was no violence involved throughout their interaction. Callus keeps doing things that annoy her, so they have been bickering for a while now. Moments later, he asks about her agenda for the day. She plans to stay at the library to learn more about the Lifestone. Along with that, he brings up her secret. She explains that she plans to finish the contract for circulation first before telling her brothers. Moreover, she is confident that her brothers will support her no matter what. She orders Callus to keep it a secret until then. He mentions the confidentiality clause in the contract. A contract with mankind is just a piece of paper for him, but Amelle is an exception since she's special. He looks at her slyly, which makes her blush. He's kinda slick with that, huh? the library later that day, she decides to give up reading since there are a lot more books related to the Lifestone than she thought. From the book she read, she learns that the stone is very handy if she knows how to use it. Now, she tries to find an entertaining book to read to relieve stress. As she's about to pick up her chosen book, another history book beside it seems to captivate her. She contemplates grabbing it. In the end, she can't control herself, for she has to take a look. It's a good thing that the book uses modern language, so she is able to grasp the tenor of what is being said. She has so many questions as she continues to read it. Momentarily, Callus's sudden presence surprises her. He starts being nosy as he takes a peek at what she's reading. He thinks that Amelia's reason for coming to the library is to find the answer about the seal. He even cockily offers to ask him directly instead of reading. She then gets quite defensive, and they start bickering again. Callus insists on telling her whatever she wants to know, and she eventually lets him. Afterward, they proceed to talk about the matter. Start off with what the mark of the dragon means. He starts explaining about dragons, mana, mating, etc. Basically, dragons over 500 years old are unable to mate. Upon knowing that he's a 2,000-year-old dragon, Amelia chuckles at the thought that he's too old to mate. Based on the book, the two souls will collide and the dragon's partner will make the power skyrocket. Amelia is the one who can help Callus with that. What she doesn't understand, though, is why he needs to find a mate when he already has overwhelming power. He then explains that she's like a tranquilizer to him. Since he has a very short temper, her role is to mate with him to calm him down. He offers to show her how mating works, but she declines. Also, she mentions that it's written in the book that they will become life partners, which means that they're not allowed to drift apart after getting married. Assuming what she's insinuating, he says to take it into consideration since he's not ready to get hitched yet. In fact, she doesn't even want to marry him in the first place. However, the life partner thing is basically just a contract. Given that humans can't stand the power of the dragon, Amelia is his chosen one since she's not just a human. Callus reminds her that the goddess chose her personally, but she's convinced that she doesn't have any special powers. Eventually, she will find out soon enough that she is a very special and unique human. The next day, she finally gets it. She wakes up with trees near her nightstand, which shocks her and the maid. How does a tree come out of nowhere? After observing it for a while, her assumption is that it is from the potted plant. Amelia shakes off her thoughts that seem impossible. She notices something familiar in the tree that reminds her of the wilted leaves. When she woke up that morning, the wilted tree suddenly became healthy and thick. The maids arrive in her room, worried about the commotion. She explains to them that it originated from the plant pot that was moved from the office before. Monica, the maid, mentions Priest Enoch's prophecy. When Amelia was in a coma, he said that a huge evolution was going to happen after she woke up. So, in conclusion, everything that is happening right now is not a coincidence. Momentarily, she remembers her interaction with the goddess and realizes that it is her doing after all. Monica then orders Megan to call Leonhard and prepare to deliver a message. Later on, they contact Priest Enoch through a communication ball. He takes the call as a sign that the prophecy is true. Although he isn't surprised by the commotion, he doesn't expect it to be at such a level. He tells her about her power and says that she should know its source. The power is actually a gift from the goddess. He will explain it more clearly to her when they meet in person. With that, he asks her to visit him sooner. Leonard's coming home, so the timing is perfect. They agreed to meet each other later that afternoon. Amelia now feels secure and confused at the same time. Momentarily, Leonard arrives worriedly. He keeps asking her questions as he panics. She tries to calm him down and assures him that she's fine as she explains what happened. He grows quite suspicious of the priest, worried that he said some weird things during their conversation. Afterward, she asks him a favor. He decides to leave for the temple after lunch. He gets excited knowing that he is able to spend more alone time with his sister. Leonard then leaves to get ready, so now Amelia is left alone in her room. Shortly, Callus arrives. It seems like he already knows what's coming. He reminds her of their conversation the day before. After all, she's supposed to find out everything soon enough. There's still time before she goes to the temple, so he orders her to lie down, which is unexpected, so she's surprised. Amelia is confused that Callus is asking her to lie down in bed in broad daylight. She gets quite suspicious, but he reminds her about recovering her memories. He then teases her for being impure. In the meantime, she needs to take a little more nap until her body gets used to it. Unlocking her memories is his job, starting off with short memories. She needs to write it down so it will not be forgotten. The fresher the memory is, the easier it is for Callus to find it. Thus, her memories will be retrieved in reverse order, starting from the most recent to the oldest one. Since her case is a little special, there's a possibility that her memories will be mixed. Moreover, she will feel that everything is real, including the pain. That's actually so scary. He warns her of the possible things that will happen throughout the recovery. Amelle starts to feel tense, but she will try her best. They start the process shortly, but he quickly teases her before proceeding. Ugh, how come he still has time for that? She feels scared she might see some triggering memories, especially since it's the real Amelle's memory. The thought of knowing the answers to all her questions regarding Amelle's past stresses her out. Callus assures her by making sure to wake her up when she starts looking miserable during her sleep. He will stay with her until she wakes up. As soon as she falls asleep, she sees Amelle at a family meal in Perlin, eating risotto along with other girls. Although she can't move her body, she can feel the taste in her mouth clearly. Earlier, Callus said that the first memories would be mostly brief scenes, which means that this moment will disappear soon. In her memory, she was roaming around in the market that evening and she's trying more different foods. Callus is now curious about what her dream is all about because she keeps chewing. Amelle finally wakes up after an hour. She starts murmuring about the food in her memories. The first thing she says to Callus is that she's hungry. He warns her that she might faint, but she's still persistent enough to go to the temple that afternoon. She's quite irritable, and he keeps teasing her, acting all high and mighty, which pisses her off. She then tells him to leave. He notices her attitude change, but that doesn't stop him from teasing her. In his defense, he's only acting in accordance with their agreement. In the middle of their bickering, Monica, who's only delivering food, catches Amelle talking to Callus. As soon as she witnesses their casual relationship, she immediately drops the food tray. She misunderstands their interaction and assumes that Amelle is in love with a man. Amelle shuts him out and goes after Monica to explain herself. Later on, she tells her that everything is just a misunderstanding. Her excuse is that Callus and she have a secret that no one else should know. Eventually, Monica believes her. However, she advises her that it's better to start a relationship slowly, even though she doesn't plan to date anyone yet. Afterward, Amelle pulls herself together just in time for Leonard's arrival. They decide to leave before their brother notices. As soon as they arrive at the temple, she greets Priest Enoch right away. He also greets her brother pleasantly, but he doesn't reciprocate his energy. Leonard is quite harsh toward the priest. Since their meeting is very sudden, there's only a simple preparation. Priest Enoch proceeds to get straight to the point and explains the first prophecy. Actually, it's more like a blessing than a prophecy, so the priests call the goddess's blessing the greatest power of life. It is the power that can make all things grow and be alive, which is the same as what Amelle has done. All the prophecies of the goddess are publicly announced, except for one. Shortly, he shows a lithograph. The representative of the goddess in writing refers to Domina. Moreover, it is said that when the chosen person appears, it will be easy to recognize. It turns out that the chosen person is Amelle, who has the power to bring life to everything. It is shocking news for both Amelle and Leonard, since it is unexpected that the goddess chose to pass down part of her power to her. Priest Enoch assures her that as long as she keeps practicing, she will get better at controlling her power. The temple will be responsible for teaching her. Also, her power is likely stronger than they anticipated. She explains what happened earlier in detail. After that, he plans to find appropriate training for her. Amelle now thinks that her life is miserable because of the added responsibility that the goddess has passed down to her. It's like a punishment in disguise. Since Leonard refuses to take his sister away from them, the class will be conducted through the communication stone. For her, distance learning is no different from studying at home, since both will still make her suffer. He assures him that no one will take Amelle away from their family, but for the time being, she still needs to study face-to-face. Moreover, the training will take place regularly once a week for the next 5 years. Priest Enoch recommends she stay at the temple to focus on her studies after being selected as the official Domina. Speaking of which, she will be having a coronation ceremony soon. Meanwhile, Leonard gets excited and vouches for himself to be her companion once she becomes the Domina. She somehow already figures it will happen someday because Elon mentioned it before. To make her feel better, the priest will offer her all the assistance they can. After that meeting, she starts overthinking about what's going to happen. Meanwhile, Callus is just observing her inside her room as she's stressing out. He finds Amelle's situation entertaining, which pisses her off. He then encourages her to accept the title, since it's already settled after all. However, she's not interested at all. He also points out that his presence means he's trying to protect her, but she doesn't need any of his help. Every time she talks to him, her blood pressure always starts to get high. By the way, it's been a few days since she started dream therapy with him. All she can conclude is that Amelia is a big eater. She can literally create a menu out of her diary of dreams at this point. On the other hand, Elan has been quiet lately. There hasn't been a word from him, which bothers her. While thinking about the reason, she gets a letter from the royal palace. Speaking of Elan, he finally makes his move with the letter from the royal palace. Amelia tells Bastian that His Majesty wants to see her. However, he doesn't allow it, even if it's the king's command. He hates him that much, huh? Since she's persistent, he eventually allows her as long as he comes with her. She argues that he's busy. Suddenly, Callus arrives and offers to accompany her instead. He also has business there to take care of, so accompanying her is just right. Moreover, she assures her brother that Elan will never hurt her, so he doesn't need to worry. Eventually, Bastian agrees and approves of Callus going with her. He warns him to behave himself and bring her back safely. Afterward, while walking through the garden, Amelia asks how he is acquainted with His Majesty. The truth is that he doesn't know him, but he's acquainted with his ancestors. Specifically, the Emperor from 500 years ago. Many years ago, the Emperor wanted to give Callus something, so he took that opportunity. She keeps asking questions, but he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. They're both nosy. What a perfect match. She then tells him to show up on time if he wants to go with her. The process of going there is quite a lot, so they need to be early. Shortly, they arrive at the outbuilding, but he doesn't plan to come in. It turns out that he only walked her home so she wouldn't feel lonely. After that, he disappears into thin air, leaving her alone. The next day, Callus arrives late, so Amelia is now angry. Meanwhile, he is so calm and tells her to hug him, which makes her angrier. She misunderstands his gesture when he explains that they'll be teleporting to the royal palace. Now she's embarrassed for assuming other things. In just a snap, they arrive outside the gate. She then realizes that they're trespassing and it's illegal. Inside the castle, Elan wonders why the intruder alarm rang. Unexpectedly, it's because of Amelia, so she's really guilty about that. He assures her that it's fine and acknowledges Callus's presence beside her. As usual, his attitude towards His Majesty is concerning for her. He sort of has a connection to the royals, that's why. His story is interesting, but the main focus of the meeting is Amelia. Later on, Elan mentions that Priest Enoch already told him about her power. Indeed, his hunch is right. When he heard that she was coming back, he suddenly had a very strong feeling that he needed to ask her to become the Domina. He's right, it can't be anyone else but her. Admittedly, he feels guilty for putting too much pressure on her. She doesn't fall for it, though. She's already fully aware of the responsibilities, but hearing them directly from him makes her dizzy. The coronation ceremony will be held in a month since the news has already spread throughout the capital. Assuredly, it's going to be less stressful since the temple will take care of the event. She still finds everything so hard for her, though. Elan tells her to enjoy the remaining month as much as she can. Moreover, she will receive support money when she officially becomes the Domina, which makes her feel a lot better. Admittedly, money is everything, so she really values every penny. Switching the subject, Elan gives her the Domina's necklace. Normally, people who put it on and don't have divine power will faint, but since she's not a normal person, it's guaranteed that it's safe. On the other hand, Callus wants to take his piece from him since his ancestors are all dead now. He mentions Harrison, the 49th emperor of the Rohatan Empire, and how they're acquainted. Whenever the former emperor was in danger, there was always a helper with strange powers to help him out. Actually, there's a contract between Callus and him in exchange for something to keep Rohatan safe. To conclude, the helper mentioned in the story is Callus, and now he's here to claim the promise that was given to him. Today, Callus is present to collect the promise. With that, Elan will give him the honorary title Marquise as promised. The title is an act of gratitude for defending the frontier. In the past, he refused it and just disappeared. However, his sudden change of heart is because of Amelia. He wants to cling to her forever, and the title will surely raise his profile, especially among her brothers. Smart move, Callus. On their way home, Amelia seems pissed and thinks that it's a disaster. Callus is very happy because he will be conferred soon. She finally stops complaining as soon as she sees a golden statue. Momentarily, she also notices a baby bird on the ground fighting for its life. He keeps blabbering while she grabs it. Then, he tells her to try to save it by using her power because she seems like she's about to cry. He's really emotionless, but she tries to do it anyway. She still doubts herself since she doesn't know how to control her powers yet, but she just hopes for the best. Like a miracle, The bird is alive and becomes a giant bird. In the end, she's able to save it, so it's a success and he congratulates her. Back in her room, Amelia feels alive again after an exhausting day, but surprisingly, Callus is in her room as well. That's really creepy, Callus. You can't go around sneaking into other people's rooms. Well, in his defense, they will be doing another session that night. This time, he will leave before she wakes up, or else her brothers will find out and dispatch him. She expects to eat in her memory again, however, she finds blood in her hands instead. Sophie's hands, smeared with blood from her mouth, held a surreal touch of crimson. A sudden ache in her body weakened her, making her feel as if her strength was draining away. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted the moment, bringing Sophie back to reality. Swiftly, she wiped the blood away, and fear flicked on Jera's face as she noticed the red stains on Sophie's clothes. I can't imagine how she handled Amelia's illness. In a dramatic flicker, Amelia found herself yearning to visit her parents, desperately seeking their forgiveness and fearing her brothers might forget her, all within the elusive landscape of a dream. The intensity of these emotions gripped her until she caught her breath upon waking. The dream's residue lingered, leaving her with an unfamiliar, strange sensation in her body. Morning arrives, and Vivian, noticing Amelia's early wakefulness, inquires about her sleep. Choosing to keep the night's restlessness to herself, Amelia simply mentions she's working on her dream diary. Left alone, she continues to recount her dream, vividly revisiting moments of illness and bloodshed. Despite the clarity of these recollections, confusion clouds the circumstances surrounding Amelia's death. One undeniable fact emerges. When she entered Amelia's lifeless form in the dream, she was already devoid of breath. Lost in contemplation, Amelia regains her composure when Bastien calls, questioning her thoughts on the garden. However, her musings are unrelated, prompting Bastien to propose buying her a tranquil island for undisturbed reflection and the possibility of building a villa there. I think my jaw just dropped to the floor. Seriously? A whole villa? Amelia, though initially hesitant, mustered the courage to inquire about Bastien's affection for her. With a casual demeanor, Bastien responded, stating that she was his beloved sister. This revelation prompted Amelia to ponder the implications. If she weren't his sister, would his love for her still endure? One thing she knows now, in unveiling her true identity, things won't end well. Amelia and Callus are discussing at the warehouse about her dream and how odd she feels after it, so she admits that she feels guilty. On the other hand, he jokingly says that he's amazed at how deep she can be, but she takes it seriously and gives him a death gaze. Despite Amelia's upset expression that she can't win an argument with him, he continues to tease her and laughs while staring at her. When he asks why she's still looking glum after what he said, she just states that she has her reasons. If I were Sophie, my knees would tremble right now. Sophie can't believe that he is capable of saying those words. Their topic swiftly shifts to a pile of stones, and she feels a twinge of guilt towards Callus, realizing he had to do all the work she asked for. In response, he mentions that she is the first person he has ever let use him, and she feels a sense of satisfaction in having hired such a skilled worker. Amelia, meanwhile, senses the need for shelves to organize the stones and contemplates how to process them further for sale. Proposing a profit-boosting idea to Callus, she is pleased when he agrees to stay by her side. However, he harbors a belief that she will soon regret their pact. As Callus senses someone nearby, he instinctively grabs Amelia's waist, prepared to leave. 3 guys arrive, one of them holding Leonard and stating that he won't let him go unless Leon returns with them. Identifying themselves as Hayden, Alan, and Phil, they reveal that Amelia has a shrine in the edifice. However, there's disagreement among them, with one mage dismissing it as mere showmanship. Contrary to the escalating tension, Amelia remains calm as they argue. Meanwhile, Leonard and his aide continue arguing, highlighting the chaos that ensued when he abruptly left upon becoming the Archmage, leaving the aide to shoulder the tasks that were originally meant for him. Despite Hayden's remarks, Leonard dismisses them, asserting that his 3 aides are more than capable of handling his responsibilities. The aide, however, persists in making a fuss about the exhaustion of the situation, with Phil emphasizing that it was the first time the edifice had been left without an Archmage. In response, Leonard's aides make it clear that they weren't hired to clean up his mess. Unfolding in the background, Sophie remains an amused spectator, still listening while casually munching on popcorn. Looks like someone's in a free action movie. In a fit of frustration, Leonard dismisses the sudden urgency, falsely asserting that he didn't raise his aides to be dependable. The aides, however, unveil a mounting threat of magical creatures at the borders, citing a doubling of incidents over the past 4 months. Despite earlier warnings, they now propose Leonard's return to tackle the escalating situation. Amelia, observing Leonard's exasperation, exits the room in sheer disbelief. Outside, Callus intercepts her, and she playfully questions if he's equipped with a tracker, given his uncanny ability to appear during her walks. Callus, in his usual enigmatic manner, reassures her about Pelham's, urging her to stay grounded in the present. Amelia, musing about the aides' stay at the guest house, anticipates a lively atmosphere, but Callus, with a hint of disdain, shuns the idea. She discloses the aides' desire for him to join, much to Callus's annoyance, prompting him to ponder the impending ordeal. Despite Amelia's concern about magical creatures near her old village, Callus advises her to channel her energy into present. Aw, I love the fact that he never fails to assure her. Meanwhile, somewhere, Jaira is running as fast as she can without looking back. OMG, who's after her? As they gaze at the shelves, Callus asks Amelia if she's pleased with the setup. Amelia enthusiastically exclaims her happiness, envisioning profits rolling in from the soul stones. She explains her plan to use them as ornaments, highlighting the challenge of avoiding fractures during further processing. Considering soul stones' exclusivity, she aims to make them accessible by incorporating them into everyday jewelry, albeit at a cost. Despite Callus's initial doubt about selling them, Amelia sees it as a long-term plan and plans to visit a jewelry store first. Fired up, Amelia wants to tackle the matter immediately, but Callus, citing other commitments, can't join. Amelia points out his freedom from work and questions when he'll be available. He promises to make time tomorrow. Meanwhile, a restless man wonders why Callus hasn't returned yet. He acknowledges that Callus may have no direct connection to Amelia, but acknowledges his efforts for her. Despite uncertainty, he believes Callus will do whatever it takes for the deal. What? Is he using Sophie for his own benefit? Engrossed in his thoughts while searching for a useful book, Callus is interrupted by the arrival of Ro. The latter proudly presents a book designed to help Callus gain Sophie's trust and another one that advises on courting her. Adding a touch of humor, he suggests that Callus should try acting like a human to win her trust, aware that Callus doesn't typically value mere humans. Intrigued, Callus decides to give it a try and eagerly asks to hear the detailed plan his friend has in mind. I hope that he will not end up hurting her feelings, or else we will feed him to the lions. He proceeds to explain in detail what Callus needs to do to gain Sophie's trust. However, growing wary of the training, he abruptly decides to handle her research instead, expressing regret over the devised plan. As he prepares to leave, Callus insists that he leave all the books behind and immediately immerses himself in reading them. Amelia greets the 3 aides in the morning while they are eating. Bastian also extends his greetings, contemplating that it's all right for him to have Leonard's aides in the palace. Bastian shocks Amelia by inviting the aides to a feast, but they all have busy schedules. When he asks the aides about their plans for taking Leonard, she understands why he's so welcoming to them. I think he doesn't like his own brother's presence at the palace. Hayden informs Bastian that the elders are awaiting Leonard's arrival in a month, expressing their comfort during the stay. Bastian, pleased with the news, hopes for the mission's success, and Hayden thanks him. Meanwhile, Phil approaches Amelia, requesting a private conversation, which she agrees to. In the garden, Phil apologizes for taking longer to escape from the other 2 aides, and then inquires about Amelia's secret, causing her anxiety, suspecting he's aware of her possessing Amelia's body. To her relief, the secret in question is the Soul Stones, and Phil assures her that he's the only mage who knows about it. His magical expertise lies in directing and discovering things, including Soul Stones, which makes her worry about potential trouble. However, he promises not to reveal her secret if she shows him her setup for producing Soul Stones. Phil believes the procedure is still in its early stages, given that the Archmage and Bastian are unaware of it, and assumes she has only a few individuals working for her. You're right, Phil, but I think the person she's working with will betray her. I hope not. The inquiry doesn't stop there. Phil asks if he could take a tour of the facility to witness where the Soul Stones are created, assuring he'll keep it a secret. Amelia admires his insight, but declines, thinking he would finally comprehend the process. Yet when she rejects his request, he insists that, as a mage, he must fulfill his responsibilities and report everything, intending to report it to the Archmage. Sophie takes the bait and persuades him to visit the facility. I hope he really doesn't tell anyone about the soul stones. After some time, Amelle considers giving Phil a tour of the facility, fearing her brother will find out otherwise. As she contemplates this, she notices Callus staring at her intently. Wondering why, she questions him about his intent. Instead of answering, he asks if she finds his gaze seductive, surprising her, as he typically believes his stare is ineffective. Amelle exclaims that he needs a better strategy for when Phil visits the facility, rather than just looking at her. Puzzled by his silence, she wonders why he's quiet. Unbeknownst to her, Callus silently thinks that his sweet words are actually having an impact. Wait, did he actually read the book? Phil is amazed by the soul stones he holds, muttering to himself that he took a gamble on feeling the magic within them. Abruptly, Callus instructs Phil to leave immediately. Phil, surprised by Callus's apparent coldness, comments that the rumors about him seem true. Despite this, Callus remains indifferent, prompting Phil to express his interest in Callus. Turning his attention to Amelle, Phil questions her plan for the soul stones, doubting that she would personally sell them. While observing her, he assures her that she has nothing to worry about, claiming he has no ulterior motive since he's a fan of Amelle. The thing is, she's not Amelle, Phil. Amelle eventually confides in Phil about her plan to turn the soul stones into jewelry. He expresses concern about the potential risk of processing them all, considering passing trends and asking her about strategy for handling any excess. Phil then proposes the idea of considering the edifice as a potential buyer, leaving Amelle astonished by the suggestion. They delve into the details of the edifice's regular purchasing agreement for soul stones, emphasizing that she stands as a sole supplier capable of consistent production. Without hesitation, Phil signs up for the agreement and advises her to formalize the contract the following day to notify the edifice. In response, Amelle, while appreciating the opportunity, expresses her priority for security to safeguard the secrecy of her business. Curious about the situation at the eastern border of Rohatyn, Amelle queries Phil, who promptly provides details, revealing Hayden's responsibility and sharing information about casualties. Meanwhile, in her bed, Sophie remains troubled about Pelin, but the assurance from Callus that everything is likely fine helps ease her worries. As she drifts into sleep, her maid rushes in, delivering unexpected news that someone is looking for her. In a state of shock, Sophie hurries to the scene and is unexpectedly embraced by Jera. But why was she running in the woods? What exactly happened to her? Sipping tea with a troubled expression, Jera responds to Amelle's inquiry about her well-being and the reason for the ambush they experienced. Jera had just arrived at the palace after receiving a letter from Amelle 3 months ago. She explains that upon riding the wagon, the merchant took an unexpected shortcut, extending their journey to the capital by a week, catching her off guard. They were subsequently attacked by monsters along the way, prompting them to flee in search of a nearby village. As Jera recounts her experience, Amelle realizes that Jera is the person who went missing. Intrigued, Amelle encourages Jera to continue sharing the details of her journey to reach her. Poor Jera. I can really tell that it was hard for her. Had Jera replied to Amelle's letter, she could have saved her the trouble, but Jera chose to keep it a surprise. Monica interrupts, informing Amelle that the bath is ready and suggesting she take Jera for a bath. Seated at the table, Jera expresses admiration for Amelle's dress and praises the delicious food. She confesses feeling terrible for selling Amelle, but doesn't regret her decision after seeing her current situation. Jera continues to shower Amelle with compliments, emphasizing her special status as Cedric's youngest sibling. However, Sophie intervenes, advising Jera to refrain from discussing Amelle's situation and to stop addressing her as Madam. Despite the confusion over how to address her, Amelle reassures Jera that they are still friends, encouraging her to speak casually and comfortably. I'm happy that she still thinks of Jera as her friend. Jera expresses amazement at Amelle having her own garden. Standing beside her, Callus is reminded of Sophie solely due to Jera's energetic demeanor. Amelle decides to talk to Leonard, suggesting he watch over Jera. Leonard, not keen on the idea, delegates the responsibility to one of the mages. Despite his protest, Amelle doesn't listen and leaves Jera in his supervision. Amelle informs Leonard about Jera's situation, but he appears indifferent. She requests him to look into the incident, and he expresses concern for her friend and the villagers. Without hesitation, Leonard agrees to Amelle's request. However, Hayden is displeased, recalling that he had made a similar request in the past but didn't receive immediate approval. Leonard casually remarks that he should have been born as Amelia, insinuating that Amelia's requests are easily granted. "You're being biased here, sir. Isn't it your duty to do so, Leonard?" The aides, reflecting on their strategies, feel that employing Amelia from the beginning could have been a more effective approach to influence Leonard into fulfilling their requests. Phil, recognizing the distress over potential monster attacks, offers assurance to Amelia, vowing to handle the situation. He proposes that they prepare to depart the following day. In the midst of these discussions, Amelia turns to Jaira, ensuring her not to worry about returning to the village and requesting Leonard's intervention for a resolution. Grateful, Jaira expresses her intent to sing praises about Amelia to others. Curious about her village, Amelia learns that it remains unchanged, and Jaira excitedly shares that Amelia is now the proud owner of the inn. Feeling a sense of responsibility, Jaira suggests hosting a celebration in honor of the 3 departing wizards. The group hurries to the plaza to make preparations for the upcoming festivity. Returning to the palace after the hustle and bustle of preparations, Amelia appears visibly fatigued. Jaira playfully recalls their past 6-hour walks, but Amelia clarifies that she's been occupied with sitting all day, intending to build strength for longer walks. At Amelia's request, Jaira is escorted by Monica to contribute to the party preparations. Once Jaira departs, Callus emerges and inquires about Amelia's fatigue. Surprised to see him, she recollects informing Leonard about the day's events. Callus, however, dismisses her concerns, asserting that it doesn't affect her directly. Annoyed, Amelia insists that caring is a fundamental aspect of human nature. Shifting the conversation to the bustling activities in the annex, Callus raises the topic of overcrowding. Amelia explains that they are celebrating the 3 mages' contributions at the border and suggests it's customary to host such events for guests. Puzzlingly, Callus appears oblivious to these customs, leaving Amelia taken aback by his attitude. As the realization dawns on her, she discovers that she had forgotten about a particular guest. The moment she comprehends it is Callus himself, her astonishment deepens. "Hold on, what's the meaning of this? Don't tell me he's jealous towards the 3 mages!" Amelia considers Callus a technical guest, momentarily forgetting his presence as he seamlessly makes himself at home. Callus, seizing the opportunity for jest, feigns hurt feelings, suggesting that Amelia is putting him through a lot. In response, Amelia stands her ground, reminding him that he was the one who made the choice to stay. Undeterred, she asserts that he isn't the type to benefit from a welcome party and playfully suggests a farewell party might be more fitting for him. Despite Callus expressing his aversion to socializing, Amelia persists in inviting him to the celebration. She contends that his attendance will be a welcome addition to the festivities, to which he responds with a warm acknowledgement. At the party, the 3 mages are astounded by Jaira's culinary prowess, and Amelia credits Jaira for initiating the idea of a welcoming party. Hayden recalls Jaira as Amelia's village friend, expressing appreciation for the lovely gesture. Jaira, moved by the mages' contributions, expresses her gratitude, bringing Alan to tears. The mages, having endured a challenging year at the edifice, are touched by the kindness they're experiencing, a departure from their usual treatment. Leonard's unexpected arrival at the party surprises the 3 mages, leading Hayden to question who in their right mind would want to party with the boss. Amelia reveals that she has also invited all of Leonard's siblings, including Callus. As the celebration unfolds, they indulge in excellent food, but Leonard and Hayden continue their banter. Jaira advises Amelia to leave the grumpy visitors to her care, revealing a barrel of liquor and proposing a toast to enhance the festivities. Jaira really knows how to brighten up the mood. Meanwhile, Bastian remains in his room, overhearing the bustling activity in the annex. Hoon questions his decision not to attend the party, and Bastian explains that his presence might create awkwardness for everyone. Bastian, curious about Jaira's name, recalls that she was the one who reported Amelia. Hoon expresses concern that Bastian's absence may have a negative impact on Amelia, but Bastian reassures him that Amelia is fine with him not attending the party. Hoon notes Bastian's recent smiles and reflects on the transformation of the mansion. He recalls how it used to be tainted with the scent of blood and death before becoming a lively and hospitable place, a change he attributes to Amelia's return, for which he is grateful. I can imagine Bastian being overjoyed when Amelia returned. So cute. Hoon commends Amelia, and Bastian agrees. Hoon also reflects that their parents must be pleased with her homecoming. Upon hearing this, Bastian stops writing, nods in agreement, and then swiftly rises to race to a specific location. Entering a room, Bastian immediately swings the curtains, concealing the portraits of their parents. We'll stop here for today, guys. Yes, I know you want more. Don't forget to ask for the next part in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching and for your support. Please subscribe to the channel, it helps us a lot. Till the next one.